There is one place where a woman cannot fully control her emotions. Not in conversation, not in body language, and definitely not on her face. It is in her phone. Specifically, it is in the way she texts you. Because here is what most men do not realize. When a woman is attracted to someone, something shifts inside her. Her thinking changes. Her attention sharpens. And whether she intends to show it or not, that shift bleeds directly into how she communicates through a screen. The timing of her replies, the length of her messages, the little details she chooses to include when she had no reason to include them at all. Every single one of these things is data, and once you understand what you are actually looking at, you will never read a text message the same way again. The problem is that most men have been taught to look for the wrong signals entirely. They wait for the obvious move. They want her to say something bold, something undeniable, something that removes all possibility of doubt. But that is not how attraction communicates itself through text. It never announces itself directly. Instead, it hides inside patterns, inside habits, inside the tiny choices she makes at 11 at night when she could be doing anything else but keeps coming back to the conversation. Think back for a moment. Has there ever been a woman who texted you frequently, who always seemed to respond quickly, who sent you messages that felt slightly more personal than they needed to be? And at the time, you brushed it off, told yourself she was just being friendly, just being polite. Then later, weeks or months down the road, something made you reconsider. And you found yourself wondering, was she actually interested the entire time and I simply missed it? That moment of delayed recognition is one of the most common experiences men describe when they talk honestly about missed connections. And it happens not because the signals were too subtle to exist, but because no one ever explained what those signals actually look like through a screen. Today that changes. By the way, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments. I'm Isabella, and I always love seeing how far this community reaches. Now let's get into it. Because the first sign is one that almost every attracted woman does automatically, and almost every man completely misreads when it happens. Before we go through each sign, there is one thing worth understanding about why texting reveals so much more than face-to-face interaction sometimes does. When a person is physically present with someone they are attracted to, they have some ability to manage their reactions. They can control their facial expression, choose their words carefully, maintain composure. But texting removes many of those real-time filters. A woman is alone with her phone. She is alone with her thoughts. And the choices she makes in that private space, how fast she responds, what she chooses to share, how much effort she puts into a single message, those choices come from a more honest place than she might realize. Psychologists who study digital communication have noted that texting behavior can reveal emotional investment in ways that mirror face-to-face signals like sustained eye contact, leaning in, and extending a conversation beyond its natural endpoint. The patterns translate, the medium changes. The psychology behind them does not. So, here are 7 signs that reveal attraction through the way she texts you. Pay attention not just to what each sign is, but why it appears. Because understanding the psychology behind it is what separates real awareness from guesswork. Sign 1. She responds faster to you than makes logical sense. Every person has a relationship with their phone that reflects their priorities. Texts from coworkers sit unanswered for hours. Messages from casual acquaintances get a response whenever it is convenient. But texts from people who carry emotional weight get a different treatment entirely. They get noticed almost immediately. They get opened before other things. They get answered even when the timing is inconvenient. When a woman responds to your messages quickly and consistently, not just once but as a pattern, she is revealing where you sit in the hierarchy of her attention. Response speed is one of the most honest behavioral signals in digital communication because it is difficult to fake over time. She might respond to one message quickly out of convenience, but when it happens repeatedly across different times of day, different situations, different moods, it stops being coincidence and starts being priority. The detail most men overlook is the timing pattern at night. If she is consistently responding to your messages late in the evening, especially within minutes, that tells you something specific. She is not putting her phone down. She is keeping it close. She is keeping you close. Now, here is what this sign does not mean. It does not mean that a slower response equals disinterest. Some women are naturally slower communicators. Some are busy. Context always matters. What you are looking for is the contrast. Does she seem to respond to you faster than her general texting behavior would suggest? If the answer is consistently yes, pay attention to that. Sign 2. Her messages are longer than the conversation requires. Human beings instinctively match their communication effort to how much they care about the interaction. A text sent out of obligation is usually brief. It answers the question and ends there. A text sent by someone who genuinely wants to connect does something different. It goes further. It adds detail that was not requested. It extends the thread when it could have closed. When a woman sends you a message that is longer than it needed to be, when she answers your question and then adds something extra, an observation, a small story, a detail about her day that relates to nothing you asked, she is not filling space. She is creating a bridge. She is keeping the door of the conversation open because she wants you to walk through it again. Think about what it takes to write a longer message. She had to stop whatever she was doing, form her thoughts, choose her words, and invest more than the bare minimum into a reply to you. That investment is a signal. In the psychology of communication, effort communicates value. When someone gives more than they had to give, they are telling you something about how they feel. The clearest version of this sign is when her messages begin pulling you into her world without you having asked to be there. She mentions what she is cooking. She tells you about something that happened at work. She shares a small frustration or a small excitement that most people would simply keep to themselves. She is not just responding to you. She is including you. And inclusion is one of the earliest forms of emotional intimacy. Sign 3. She texts you first repeatedly without a practical reason. There is a simple but revealing question you can ask about any texting relationship. Who initiates? Not once, not twice, but as a consistent pattern across weeks. Because initiation requires something that responses do not. It requires reaching out when there was no external trigger. It requires thinking about someone and then deciding to act on that thought. When a woman texts you first regularly, and especially when those texts have no practical purpose, she is showing you where her mind goes when she has a moment to itself. She thought of you, and instead of letting that thought pass, she sent it in your direction. That is a choice, a quiet but deliberate one. The version of this sign that carries the most weight is the random message. She sees something during her day and immediately thinks of you. She sends it without explanation. A meme, a news story, a photo of something she noticed that reminded her of a conversation you had. These messages look casual on the surface. Underneath them is the fact that you were present in her mind during a moment that had nothing to do with you. That level of mental real estate is not given freely. Behavioral researchers who study attachment and romantic interest consistently identify initiation as one of the clearest indicators of emotional investment. The person who reaches out first, unprompted, is the person who is thinking about the other more than the other realizes. When that person is a woman and the pattern is consistent, it is not friendly. It is intentional, even if she has not consciously labeled it that way yet. Sign 4, she uses your name inside messages. This one is subtle enough that most men never notice it, but once you start paying attention, you will see it everywhere. When a woman is attracted to someone, she often begins using his name inside text messages in ways that go beyond identification. Not at the beginning of a conversation to get his attention, but in the middle of a sentence, woven into something she is saying, as if the name itself is something she enjoys writing. Psychologists have studied the effect of hearing your own name, and the findings are consistent. Our brains respond to our own names in a way that no other word triggers. It signals personal recognition. It says, I see you specifically, not just anyone. When someone uses your name in conversation, it creates a small but measurable increase in emotional closeness. In texting, where so much of the warmth of communication is stripped away by the absence of tone and expression, a name becomes a way to restore that warmth. It adds a layer of personal attention that impersonal messages lack. When she writes your name in the middle of something she is saying to you, she is not doing it because she needs to. She is doing it because something in her wants to, and that want is worth noticing. The amplified version of this sign is when she starts using a nickname or a shortened version of your name that she created on her own. That is not just recognition. That is ownership of the dynamic between you. It is her marking the connection as something personal and distinct from how the rest of the world refers to you. Sign 5. She keeps the conversation alive when it should naturally end. Every conversation has natural stopping points, moments where the exchange has reached a logical conclusion. where both people could close out the thread without anything being left unfinished. What happens at those moments reveals a great deal about where someone's interest actually sits. When a woman is attracted to someone, she instinctively resists those stopping points. She asks a follow-up question when none was necessary. She introduces a new topic just as the previous one was wrapping up. She finds a reason, any reason, to send one more message before the thread goes quiet. She does not want the conversation to end because ending the conversation means losing contact with you for a while. And that prospect feels worse than whatever else she could be doing with her time. This behavior is psychologically significant because it reveals a preference hierarchy. When someone extends a conversation beyond its natural endpoint, they are actively choosing that interaction over other available options. She could be watching something. She could be sleeping. She could be talking to someone else. Instead, she is finding a way to keep the thread with you alive for a little longer. Pay particular attention to how conversations end with her, not just what is said, but the energy around the closing. Does she say goodnight and immediately sign off? Or does she say goodnight and then send something else 2 minutes later? That second message, the one she did not need to send, is one of the most honest things she can show you. Sign 6, she texts you about things she experienced alone. There is a category of experience that most people process privately. The small moments that happen during a regular day, a beautiful sunset on the way home, a song that came on unexpectedly and changed her mood, a conversation she overheard that struck her as strange or funny. These are experiences with no obvious reason to share. They require no response. They accomplish nothing practical. They are simply moments that pass through her life. When a woman shares these kinds of moments with you, she is doing something that goes deeper than casual conversation. She is giving you access to her inner world. She is saying, I experienced something and my first thought was to tell you. That is an act of emotional closeness that most people reserve for a very small number of people in their lives. Researchers who study intimacy and self-disclosure consistently find that sharing personal experiences, especially unprompted ones, is a key marker of growing emotional attachment. When someone begins including you in the small private texture of their life, they are not doing it randomly. They are doing it because you have begun to feel like someone who belongs in that space. This sign is powerful because it cannot be manufactured. She is not sharing these things because the situation called for it. She is sharing them because something in her wants you to see what her world looks and feels like from the inside. That is not small. That is one of the earliest forms of genuine emotional openness that a woman can offer. Sign 7, she remembers details from old conversations and brings them back. The human brain is not designed to store every piece of information it encounters. It filters constantly, deciding what is worth keeping and what can be discarded. The deciding factor is almost always emotional significance. We remember what matters to us. We forget what does not. When a woman brings up something you mentioned weeks ago, something small, something you probably forgot you even said, she is revealing what her brain has decided to hold on to. She mentioned in passing that you had a presentation coming up and she asked about it 3 days later. You told her once that you love a specific kind of food and she references it in a completely unrelated conversation. You shared something small about your childhood and she connects it to something that comes up later. These moments of remembered detail are not coincidences. They are evidence of a quality of attention that attraction produces. When someone matters to us emotionally, we listen to them differently. Not with the half attention most conversations receive, but with the kind of focus that stores things for later without being asked to. She is not taking notes on you. She simply cares enough that the details stuck. And here is what makes this sign particularly meaningful. Recalling a detail from a past conversation and then bringing it up requires her to have been thinking about you in the time between. She could not reference something you said 2 weeks ago unless she had revisited that conversation in her mind at some point. That quiet revisiting, that private replaying of something you shared together, is one of the clearest indicators that you occupy genuine space in her thoughts. Now step back and look at all 7 signs together. She responds to you faster than circumstance requires. Her messages go longer than the question asked for. She initiates contact without a reason. She uses your name in ways that feel personal. She keeps the conversation breathing past its natural end. She brings the small moments of her private life into the thread with you. And she remembers details that tell you she has been thinking about you between conversations. Individually, each of these could be explained away. Together, they describe something that cannot be written off as coincidence or politeness. They describe a woman who is emotionally invested, whether she has said those words or not. And here is the piece most men miss. She may not even be fully aware of what her texting behavior is communicating. Attraction does not always arrive with a conscious announcement. Sometimes it simply begins quietly reshaping how we behave toward the person we feel it for. The texts get longer. The replies get faster. The small moments of the day start looking for a direction to travel, and that direction becomes you. Understanding these patterns does not give you a formula for manipulation. It gives you something far more valuable: clarity. You stop second-guessing conversations that were actually communicating something real. You stop talking yourself out of what you were genuinely sensing. You start responding to what is actually there rather than waiting for a signal that arrives too loud and too late. Because the truth is, she has probably already been showing you. It just required knowing what you were looking at. Drop a comment below and tell me, which of these 7 signs hit closest to home for you? I read every single one. And if you have not subscribed yet, do it now, because every week on this channel we go deeper into the psychology of attraction and connection in ways that most people will never think to look. Take care of yourselves. I will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching Personality with Ariba. If you enjoy videos about human personality, psychology, and behavior, make sure to subscribe to my channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon so you never miss any new videos. See you in the next video with another interesting personality insight. Until then, take care and keep improving yourself. This is Ariba, signing off.